Game Boy Advance. In my opinion, it's the system with the most adorable collection of 16-bit style games. While some games can look and play like rotten apples, it's also got a lot of lovely gems worth salvaging. Let's see what this Pocket Playhouse got to show for, in my top 10 favorite Game Boy Advance games. Amazing Mirror is Kirby's signature GBA game, and it shows. Playing as a traditional Kirby game with all the copy abilities and eating of pedestrians intact, all the while adding a Metroidvania spin to the world design. The levels themselves are creative, diverse, and colorful as they are, and it's even more interesting to have them all interconnected together, creating one big world for the Kirbys to explore. Yes, I said Kirbys. You can storm the levels with 4 Kirbs in your Puffball posse, and it's available in both single and multiplayer. You can tell how comfortable your screen's gonna be with all that. Aside from beating up enemies and bosses, you also collect some neat treasures. Most of them are spray paints, but nothing's wrong with that. You could always make your own characters from all these different Kirby colors. I know I did. It's a bit unpolished in places, of course. The navigation's messy, the multiplayer can be slow, and the abilities are a tad too simple in execution. With a bit more tune-up, this game could be one of the best in the series. But for what it is, it's still Kirby, and it still kicks butt. While I'm not a fanatic for the gameplay, Mother 3 most certainly got across what it intends to deliver. A charming story and world of quirky characters and environment. It stockpiles itself on tons of self-aware humor, and the people you meet throughout the adventures got a lot of wit to shove through your eyes. What follows, however, isn't tears of joy and laughter, but depression and tragedy. This game gets dark. Really dark. Progressing through the game only nets you more and more harrowing plot twists and plot threads that sheds darkness into this supposedly bright and sunny world. The tonal shift is so good, some will argue it's unparalleled. The gameplay is first-person RPG fare with twists such as a rhythmic combo system and slowly depleting health bars. The latter, which derives from its predecessor Earthbound. I'm not the biggest fan of this system personally, but the game's story is so good it almost doesn't matter. Mother 3 is a very unique experience, and no amount of localization setbacks can take away its flair. Astro Boy is an anime about a robot boy fighting robot gods. He's also one of the first anime icons ever created, meaning he's legendary. Yeah, suck on that, Goku. I watched a few episodes when I was young, and while I don't recall everything about it, I do enjoy the GBA game a fair ton. Omega Factor is pretty much what I'd expect from a game about Astro Boy, a beat-em-up platformer spiced up with some pretty funky weaponry, crossing over with a flying shoot-em-up. The game succeeds in both aspects by having diverse controls for wacky combos, and Astro's arsenal of lasers and butt guns make the game one hell of an explosive experience. As you play, you're not just fighting off criminal robots, you're going up against mechanical gods, artificial nature giants, and heck, you even get to fight people! Yeah, where's your loss of robotics now, you freak? Get over here! So yeah, Astro Boy is pretty sweet. Should've been the one fighting Superman, honestly. And here comes the first Game Boy Advance game I've ever played, which I forgot I did for a while. Yeah, I suck. The instant Wario Land 4 came back to memory, I knew I had to put it on here. It is the best Wario game. Few is more exciting than playing as the bumbling brigand himself, mugging gems and coins out of everything he touches, coupled with the hideously beautiful art style amped up to the max. The levels are unpredictably wacky and plays a lot with transforming both Wario and the environment as they progress. The game plays a lot with its malleable presentation through the many forms Wario takes and how much the music alternates based on the tiniest nuance of scene. It's hilariously impeccable. Even if some levels are less impressive than others, there's still a lot to enjoy from the charming take of the anti-hero gameplay saga. If only the series didn't face such a grinding halt. Unknown as it is, the Battle Network series more than earned its right to maintain its cult following, all thanks to its unique battle system and likable anime-style plotlines. While I'd argue the second game is the best one, my favorite remains the third game. Oddly enough, this isn't as good as the second game. While that one has a colorful net design and fun bosses, this one has a mostly pale net design and some of the bosses are bigger nuisance than a fair challenge. So why is this my favorite then? Well, for starters, the story is a lot bigger, with a ton of more threatening villains and major character developments even for some of the lesser characters. Your best friend is really compelling, the bond you have with your rival is much stronger, and Mamoru. Ugh, the pain is real. For all the annoying net navi bosses, there's some respectable new additions to the roster. Plantman, Kingman, and Darkman being some of my favorites. Adding on to that, mechanics like the Virus Breeder, time attacks, and entire secret levels and bonuses to discover gives the game a hell of a lot more replayability than the other installments. While a bit clunky, Battle Network 3 offers a lot of content with salvaging, and it's generally the one I came back to the most. I suppose that notion is why it remained my favorite for a while. By the way, play the blue version, it's completable without trading. My preference for Zelda games isn't a well-renowned one for sure. I'm a bigger fan of the top-down style Zeldas with brighter environments than the third-person style with darker environments most seem to prefer. I came to realize that after playing Minish Cap. Minish Cap stands out a fair bit compared to most 2D Zelda games. Presentation? Good gracious, this game is beautiful. From the colorful graphics and soundtracks to just generally upbeat environments, this is definitely my kind of Zelda. The ability to shrink yourself down does seem a bit gimmicky at first, but it stood up highly thanks to the intuition put into the design of the levels that complements this ability perfectly. The game's roster of items are just plain crazy, from a flipping staff to a jar that sucks, and holy crap, Link can jump.
I'm flying!
The game overall has this really carefree tone to it. Most Zelda games always keep you on edge with its gloomy tone, but this game leaves a lot more room to relax and enjoy the many quests that await. It's pretty much what made me enjoy this game more than the others. But who knows, that could still change in the future. Yep, Pokemon Emerald is not in top 3. Here's a gun for you. Now shoot me. Ha! It's a toy gun! Ow, 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 ow! I may not be crazy for Emerald, but it's still one of my favorite Pokemon games. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of Ruby and Sapphire. I find them really tedious due to the lack of variety in the Pokemon you encounter, and the presentation is questionable. Thankfully, like a good sister game, Emerald fixed that problem. Polished presentation, better wild Pokemon variations, fighting both Team Magma and Aqua, and the addition of rematches is a godsend. Thanks to the mixed encounters from both versions, I was able to build my team using any Pokemon I so favor. Finally, I can have Ludicolo and Dusclops in one team without trading. Now I can laugh in type coverage as they all scream in painful stalling! This is also when Rayquaza was actually a respectable deity among Pokemon, before he became the bloated fanservice noodle that he is now. What more is there to say? It's one of the most well-rounded games in the series. If you're not satisfied with Ruby and Sapphire, give this game a go. It'll show you how well Gen 3 improves on its own. Boy, who could forget one of the most notable classics of both Mario and RPGs in general? Supercell Saga remained my favorite game in the system for quite a long time, and it's not hard to see why. It brings an interesting twist to turn-based RPG with its detailed use of action commands and the ability to dodge attacks. Hell, you can even counter-attack. Couple that up with amazing visuals, soundtrack, and explosively fun humor, and you got yourself a recipe for a masterpiece. The story can be messy and inconsistent, but then again, Supercell Saga is all about the journey and shenanigans you encounter, so there's not really much wrong with that. A lot of people already talk to death about this game's glory, so I'll just cut it short and say that this is the most interesting experience that definitely set a new standard for Mario RPGs to come. But of course, as time passes, opinions begin to shift. Sacred Stones. It's funny how often fanbases will emphasize the negatives of a good game just to call it a disgraceful piece of shit, or justify their reasons to never want to play it. The Fire Emblem community is most guilty of this practice. It's disturbing how the restrictive thoughts of both elitists and casuals alike tear them apart so much that games like Sacred Stones could never get proper recognition because of it. And even despite all that, I still love this game, and I don't need some cheese grater's approval for it. It's still brimming with Fire Emblem charm, good strategy RPG fun, and support conversations that are still infinitely more interesting than what they were from the much older games. Even with the simple story, it still has great characters and awesome villains to paint the tale with the blood it needs. It's also the first game in the series to add monsters as additional adversaries, and the addition of branching classes give the game a lot of replay value. The maps may not have as much aesthetic variety as Blading Sword and Biting Blade, but that's hardly a major complaint when everything else still works. People can complain about the game being easy and grindy all they want, but that's their option. And besides, if Awakening, Fates, and Three Houses are any indication, a Fire Emblem game doesn't need to be abhorrently difficult to be perfectly functional. The only real reason this game gets bashed is for being seen as a series inferior, especially given how Fire Emblem has yet to have a truly atrocious game in its record. But you know what's even worse? Not being grateful that a game is good at all. So stop being a grouch and treat Sacred Stones with the respect it deserves as a solid member of the family that any division of fan can enjoy. Mega Man may have been the first, well, Mega Man game that I've played, but I didn't start getting into the rest of the series until much later in life. I didn't even get to touch the Mega Man X series early on, despite having played its fan games on Newgrounds first. So because of that, these two series didn't really tie to my childhood all that much. That honor goes to Mega Man Zero. Oh yeah, Mega Man Zero has been a signature Mega Man of mine for a long time. I mean, how could you not love games where you play as Zero, shooting down a bunch of creepy robots and slice them into robot gore deliciousness? Yeah! And out of all these games, Zero 3 is easily the best one. It starts out with all the basic moves and skills you need without having to level up like the first two games, and the elemental chips are wonderful exclusive additions, making Zero a powerhouse against the force of nature. And that's not all the weapons he's got. The recoil rod is a conventional new weapon as it pushes everything around you like it's Sparta. And my personal favorite, the Shield Boomerang, a weapon that blocks most enemy projectiles, and also lets you do this. This game has everything you want to see in Mega Man. Tight gameplay, cohesive mechanics, investing story progress, awesome bosses, and relishing on just how epic it is to play as a more flexible, somewhat edgy form of Zero. For all the problems the first two games might have, this game strongly makes up for their flaws and is definitely worth the experience checking out. I'm Count Shaman and thank you for your audience. Now, if you excuse me, I have a country of apes to supervise.